There was once a man in Nigeria who could walk into the offices of powerful politicians and billionaires and have them arrested. A man who terrified corrupt governors, exposed money launderers, and fought fearlessly against the system until the system turned against him. His name, Nuhu Ribadu, the policeman who became Nigeria's most famous anti-corruption warriors. But who is Nuhu Ribadu? How did he rise to become the face of Nigeria's war on corruption? And what happens when you fight the powerful in a country like Nigeria? This is the story of a man who dared to clean the system but nearly got destroyed by it. Nuhu Ribadu's story begins far from the power halls of Abuja. He was born on November 21, 1960 in Yola, the capital of what is now Adamawa State in northeastern Nigeria. His father, Ahmadu Ribadu, was a respected Nigerian politician and diplomat. During Nigeria's First Republic, he represented Adamawa East constituency in the federal parliament from 1959 to 1966. He understood the importance of education, even though he came from a region where education was often undervalued. He ensured that his son received quality education. Nuhu attended Alihu Mustafa Primary School and later proceeded to Yelua Government Secondary School in Yola. When it was time to go to the university, Nuhu Ribadu chose to study law at Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, one of Nigeria's foremost tertiary institutions. He graduated with a degree in law in 1983 and proceeded to the Nigerian Law School Lagos, where he was called to the bar in 1984. Nuhu was quite young at this time. For many young Nigerians at the time, a law degree was a golden ticket to a safe, comfortable life. Maybe working in the Ministry of Justice and becoming a state counsel and climbing through the ranks to become a permanent secretary, or becoming a judge, or working in a busy private law firm. But Ribadu's dreams were different. He wanted to serve his country differently. He wanted to fight injustice and not just study it in school. So, in the same year he became a lawyer, he joined the Nigerian police force. At the time, the police in Nigeria had a terrible reputation. Corruption was everywhere. Bribes were seen as normal, and ordinary Nigerians did not trust the police to protect them. But Ribadu wanted to change the narrative. He believed that the system could be cleaned from the inside. He believed he could be a different police officer. He believed he could operate as a policeman without taking bribes. In the police force, Ribadu did not chase after quick promotions or favors from politicians. He was the type who would rather spend hours reading case files than sipping tea with powerful people. He built his career slowly, brick by brick, earning respect as someone who did not bend to pressure. Over the years, Ribadu worked in several sensitive units of the Nigerian police force, such as the prosecution unit, the intelligence unit, and criminal investigations unit. He did not look for the easy cases. He chased the hard ones, the cases others were afraid to touch. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, corruption in Nigeria was reaching dangerous levels. Public money was disappearing in billions. Politicians were looting freely, and government offices were drowning in fraud. Nigeria was getting a terrible reputation across the world as one of the most corrupt countries on the planet. But change was coming, and a strong personality was needed to drive the change. In 2003, Nigeria's then President Olusegun Obasanjo concluded plans to set up a new agency, one that would go after money launderers, internet fraudsters, and especially corrupt public officials. The agency was called the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, otherwise known as the EFCC. Obasanjo needed someone brave enough to lead this new anti-corruption war, someone who would not bow to political godfathers or be scared of wealthy criminals. He chose Nuhu Ribadu, and that's where the real battle began. When Nuhu Ribadu became the pioneer chairman of the EFCC in 2003, at that time, most Nigerians did not know his name. In fact, many did not take the EFCC seriously. After all, Nigeria had created many agencies in the past that did nothing but watch the rich get richer while the poor suffered and got poorer. People thought that the EFCC would be another toothless body, but they were wrong. The EFCC under Nuhu Ribadu hit the ground running. From day one, he made it clear no one is above the law. For the first time in Nigeria's history, even the so-called untouchables, the governors, the ministers, the top businessmen, the corrupt politicians felt the heat. Ribadu did not start small. He went after internet fraudsters, the Yahoo boys, the money launderers and drug barons, and the powerful politicians. He did not care who they were and how high they sat. If you were part of the looting machine, Nuhu Ribadu would come for you. He even went after his boss, the Inspector General of Police, Tafa Balogun. Tafa was charged to court, found guilty, and convicted. This was a shocker to many. This had never happened before in the entire stretch of the history of Nigeria. Ribadu's rise to national fame came when the EFCC started prosecuting state governors who had long enjoyed immunity from prosecution. Governors like James Ibori of Delta State, Diepreye Alamesi of Bayelsa State, and Joshua Dariye of Plateau State were arrested, investigated, and taken to court under Ribadu's leadership. These were not small names. They were powerful politicians. They were political giants. They were powerful men with thousands of followers, with connections in high places. No one had gone after such high-profile persons before in Nigeria. But Ribadu treated them like ordinary citizens. No bribes were taken from them to let them go. No secret settlements. He wanted justice. This made him a hero to ordinary citizens of Nigeria. At least, finally, someone was doing what people had only dreamt of doing, namely, fighting the corruption that was slowly killing the country. A sense of accountability and even fear returned to the country. Public officers began to behave better than it had always been. Nigeria began to get credit internationally, with several media houses reporting Ribadu's work in the EFCC. But not everyone was happy. The more Ribadu dug into powerful pockets, the more enemies he made. Some accused him of being a tool for President Olusegun Obasanjo, claiming that he targeted only politicians who weren't loyal to the president. Others said his war was selective. But Ribadu did not stop. In fact, the EFCC under his watch recovered over $5 billion in stolen funds at the time. That was so much money at the time. Some of the money was returned to the National Treasury. He also exposed major internet fraud networks that had damaged Nigeria's global reputation. And for the first time, the international community started seeing Nigeria as a country that was finally tackling corruption seriously. Ribadu's fearless approach earned him both local and international awards. But while the public celebrated him, the political class was plotting him. They saw Ribadu as a serious danger, a man who would not play the usual political games. And in Nigeria's complex power system, that is a dangerous position to be, namely refusing to play the usual political games. No one is allowed to be that powerful. Soon, cracks began to show. Some of the governors he went after were close to powerful figures. There were quiet meetings, secret calls, and plans to get rid of Ribadu at all costs from the inside. The game was changing, and Ribadu was about to face one of the toughest fights of his life, not in the courtroom, but in the power corridors of Abuja, Nigeria's federal capital. As Nuhu Ribadu's fame grew, so did the list of people who wanted him out grow. Nigeria's elite did not like being haunted. They preferred the old system where corruption was a secret handshake, where stolen money flowed quietly and nobody asked too many questions. The louder Ribadu became, the more dangerous his position grew for the political class. His biggest test came after Olusegun Obasanjo, the man that appointed him and supported him, left office in 2007. The new president, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, came to power, and though he talked so much about fighting corruption, many of the political heavyweights surrounding him had been targets of Ribadu's investigations. Suddenly, Ribadu's strong support base began to collapse. In December 2007, something shocking happened. Ribadu, who had just been promoted to the rank of Assistant Inspector General of Police, AIG, was sent to a mandatory training program at the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPS, in Kuru, Plateau State. But many saw this as a polite way to push him out of the powerful office of chairman of the EFCC. Just as was suspected by many, while Nuhu Ribadu was at the training school in Jos, he was removed as EFCC chairman. It was clear his enemies had finally cornered him. Worse was yet to come. In 2008, while still at the training school, Ribadu was humiliated in public. He was dismissed from the police force altogether. No official reason was given. No query was given to him. No fair hearing was offered. He was simply stripped of his rank and thrown away. It was a brutal takedown. In local parlance, Nigeria just happened to him. The man who once walked the halls of power was now forced into silence. Some believed it was political revenge. Ribadu had touched too many powerful pockets. He had gone after governors, ministers, and business giants connected to Nigeria's most dangerous power brokers, and they needed to bring him down at all costs and even go after him. The pressure became unbearable, and Ribadu had to flee from Nigeria. He went into exile, fearing for his life. From outside the country, he continued to speak. He gave lectures, joined global anti-corruption movements, and kept pushing for reforms in Nigeria's broken system. He granted interviews to the BBC and other media outlets. But back home, his name had been bastardized, and Ribadu was roundly criticized by a section of the Nigerian elites. But Ribadu refused to give up. When President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan came to power, Ribadu returned to Nigeria. He fought hard to get back his rank and set aside his dismissal from the Nigerian police force. His dismissal from the police force was overturned by the court in 2011. Ribadu was happy. Justice had been served. But by then, Ribadu had shifted his focus from the police. He was no longer interested in the police force. He was now interested in political leadership. In 2011, he ran for president of Nigeria under the Action Congress of Nigeria, the ACN. It was a bold move, but he did not win. The same politicians he had fought for years still controlled the system. Ribadu's story did not end with his exile or his failed presidential bid. In fact, those chapters of his life only made his journey more interesting. He became more involved in Nigeria's political space, not just as a fighter against corruption, but as a man who still wanted to serve his country. He got appointed to serve as the chairman of the Petroleum Revenue Task Force, a team set up by the federal government of Nigeria to clean the mess in Nigeria's oil sector. This was one of the most corrupt industries in the country, where billions of dollars were being siphoned every year. Ribadu's team produced a report that exposed shocking levels of fraud. The report claimed that Nigeria had lost nearly $29 billion in oil revenue over 10 years due to corruption and shadowy deals. It was explosive. But like many reports in Nigeria, it gathered dust. Some insiders said the government was too scared to act on it. After all, some of the people mentioned were too powerful. Ribadu's fight continued, but it became clear that political power games were everywhere. Even when you got the facts right, those facts could be buried if the right people did not like them. Still, Ribadu stayed active. He ran for governor of his home state of Adamawa in 2014 but lost the race. He also switched political parties a few times, moving from the Action Congress of Nigeria to the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and later to the All Progressives Congress, the APC. Was he losing his original fire or just trying to find a platform where he could actually make a difference in a country as diverse as Nigeria? In 2023, Nuhu Ribadu's story took another surprising turn. He was appointed as National Security Advisor, the NSA, by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. This was a surprise to many. An ex-policeman as National Security Advisor? This was unprecedented. This office is often the preserve of ex-military generals. This is without doubt one of the most powerful security positions in the country. It meant that Ribadu was now responsible for advising the President of Nigeria on national security issues, terrorism, and internal threats. It also meant that all the security arms of Nigeria would work with him. Nuhu Ribadu, a lawyer, a policeman, the pioneer chairman of the EFCC, the man who had once been sidelined and forced into exile, was now back in the inner circles of power. But the question remains, has Ribadu changed the system or has the system changed him? Some believe Ribadu still carries the fire of the anti-corruption warrior. Others think years of political affiliations have softened him. But no one can deny that he is a significant figure in Nigeria's contemporary history. From a small town boy to the most feared anti-corruption officer, from exile to presidential candidate, and now one of the president's closest security advisors, his life has been full of twists, betrayals, victories, and painful losses. But through it all, he has remained part of Nigeria's biggest conversations. Nuhu Ribadu's story leaves us with hard questions. Is it possible to fight corruption in Nigeria and win? Or does the system eventually swallow anyone who tries? Now that he has found his way back into the system after being sidelined, one cannot help but wonder, will Nuhu Ribadu change the system? Or will the system change Nuhu Ribadu? Will he leave the Office of National Security Advisor of Nigeria better than he met it? Thanks for watching this edition of Back in History, and do remember to subscribe to the channel or follow the page for regular notification on every new video. I remain your friend and host Ekemini, wishing you the best of time as we continue to dig into the archives to recall the history of Nigeria and Africa. See you in the next video.